Hey guys, welcome back. And I have a great recommendation for you. So, without further ado, your Virgo girl recommendation for today is going to be American Gangster. Now, first of all, I watched this movie, I believe it was 2 days ago, and I'm really surprised that this movie is as old as it is. I feel like this movie came out in more recent times. This movie came out in 2007, starring Denzel Washington. We also get to see a young Idris Elba in this movie, which is quite interesting to see, especially the character he played. But at any rate, this is a great movie. I don't know what it is. It was in 2007, but every single person in this movie looked like they were like 30 years younger than they look today. They looked so young. So I don't know when this movie was filmed, but it came out in 2007. I feel like it was filmed in 1995. But at any rate, this movie was a really good movie that I highly recommend that you check out if you haven't seen it. And if you have seen it, comment below and let me know what you think about it. There were so many different moving parts to this movie. You had Russell Crowe, his character, you had him, in his life, and that was a totally whole different storyline that he had going on. And then you had Denzel's character, and he had his whole thing going on. And it was just kind of like, wow, this is crazy. So Denzel played Frank Lucas, the gangster from the 60s. And then you had a little part of it that kind of like talked about how he worked for Bumpy Johnson, the other mob boss, and how he kind of learned from him. And then it shows the side of Russell Crowe's character, he's playing Richie Roberts, who was the honest cop, and his goal was to take down the bad people, especially the drug dealers. So so this movie is definitely a gangster movie. I mean, definitely. You have to be okay with a lot of gory, a lot of just intense violence, a lot of there's a lot. So if you don't like violence, I must say this wouldn't be the movie for you. But if you're okay with that, then this is definitely a great movie, great storyline. It does keep you interested the entire movie. Cuba Gooding Jr. is in this movie. There are the actors, I feel they did a great job. I think one of my favorite characters, and man, he looked so good in this movie to me. And I didn't even realize, I just didn't picture him acting in this role, but I just felt like he did such a good job. I've seen him in other things, but in this role, I really liked the job that he did. His name is, I'm probably going to mess up his name. His name is Chiwetel Ejiofor, I guess. He's a British actor, but at any rate, I know I'm probably butchering his name, but he did such a good job in this movie. He played Frank Lucas's brother. He played Huey Lucas, and I just felt like he did a really good job. I just liked how he played his role. I just liked the way he looked and just how he carried himself. I just thought he did a really good job in that part. And of course, Denzel always brings it. Denzel did a great job. He definitely played that role. He played it. So the cons of the movie, I think, would be for anyone who is kind of doesn't like a lot of like maybe blood and gory things. I think that would be a con for anyone like that. It didn't bother me, but for people who, don't like that kind of stuff, that definitely would be a big con. And I definitely don't think it would be a movie that you would enjoy. But anyone else, I think, hey, you'll enjoy it from top to bottom. It's interesting to look at how things were back then. I mean, this was like the 60s, and how, wow, I guess drugs devastated the communities, and how, people were living back then. And it was just, wow. It was just something else. But it was just something to see the people on the streets as opposed to Denzel character, who was this big time, I guess he's like a drug dealer. He was able to, I don't, why did I say I guess he's a drug dealer? Of course he was a drug dealer. That was the whole point. But he was living high on the hog. He was just like this rich guy making millions. And then you just look at these people and they're just dying. They're killing themselves with the poison that he is selling. And it really makes you think like, wow. And it's just something how this is how life is. Of course, when you talk about drugs, people from all economic backgrounds do drugs. But it's so funny because when you have money, it's funny to see someone who has money and someone who doesn't have money and the effects. Now, there are people who get strung out who are super rich and you end up seeing it. And it's like, whoa, like you've seen different celebrities who obviously were rich, but they ended up becoming addicts, and you see them become thin and frail, and they talk like they're high, and they look like they're high, and they're just all over the place. You do see that. However, on a larger scale, there are a lot of people with money who are doing drugs just as the poor people are doing them, but the poor people, they're doing it, and it's like they're trying to do it to escape from poverty and escape from the terrible living conditions that they're living in because they're in poverty, because they live in these horrible areas. And at the same time, they don't even have the money to afford the drugs. So it's almost like their situation is so much more dramatic. And I feel like they're the ones that we see, they're the poster child of an addict, or, like a crackhead or whatever, or a heroin addict. We always see, the poster children for this is always like, and when I say poster children, I don't mean children, literally children. I mean like, the ones that we see at the forefront are always, generally the ones who are poor, and they always look the worst. And it's like they're giving their last dime for this next hit. And they're being judged a lot harsher than, let's say, a rock star who's just cool and they're getting high all the time, but they're cool, they look good because they have the money to afford it, they have the fancy clothes or whatever, but they're actually doing the same drugs. It's just funny how life is, and how certain people get ostracized and criticized, and others get looked at as just cool. They're just cool. They're a rock star. But anyway, I just think that's really funny. And I just feel like life is funny, just how we kind of look at each other, and how certain things make one person who is doing the exact same thing as the other person, how differently you can be looked at when you have money and when you don't have money. And just how much money talks and BS walks. And so what made me go off in that whole tangent too about money and how different people are treated differently, they were like in the 60s. And granted, they were in New York, but it was just so funny how this guy, and I'm sure not everything was exactly, it's not like it's 100% true story, but it was based on his story. So I'm sure a lot of this was true. And I'm sure he did buy homes. He was saying like how he had all these homes in, like Manhattan and, different places. And they showed one part where he goes to buy this nice, like luxurious penthouse type, I guess, condo or something in New York. And of course, it just looked somewhere where in the 60s, only affluent people would be living. And definitely you wouldn't picture like someone Black in this era just going up to there and just saying, okay, I want to live here. It definitely was a time where things were a little bit more challenging than, even there, it would have been more challenging there, even there in New York, for him to do that. However, the point is, he had millions. So it was like the lady, he was like, I want this cash. And the lady was like, okay, sure, here are the key, basically, here you go. There were no, okay, well, let me run your credit, or none of the scrutinizing that would have been done if it would just say like a regular person who just walked in and just needed to get the credit check ran and then wanted to make a down payment on the place, So it's just so funny how people overlook so much when you have money. Money that's it. It's all about green, that money. And with money, it makes a difference. Like the difference that it makes in your life is huge, and the things that you can do and the obstacles, it makes a huge difference. So I just thought that part of the movie, that's the part that stood out to me. It was showing you that even though they were living in a time where race relations were terrible and Black people were still like going through segregation and all these different things at that time, and still, having all kinds of issues, with racism, they were showing that this particular Black person had millions. So that is the difference. Even in the 60s, he was able to, in New York City, accomplish this. Now, of course, if he was in different parts of the world, it may have been a little different. Maybe not. I don't know. But if he was in the Deep South, of course, things were different there. But even in New York, it just showed how much money talks. All right. So I'm going to wrap this up. And once again, check it out, American Gangster. I highly recommend this movie. I think Denzel really did a good job. And comment below, let me know, does that seem like it was 2007? I feel like that movie came out like more recently than that, but it didn't. It was 2007. And also, tell me how you feel. Oh, T.I. is in this movie as well. He did a good job. One thing about T.I., he's a pretty good actor. I must say, he is a pretty good actor. He's in there and he looks very, very young too. Comment below, let me know. I feel like everybody in the movie looks super young. Now, 2007 was a very long time ago. I get that, but I just felt like everyone looked super young and a lot younger than, it being just 2007. So it's like 14 years ago. I guess 14 years, you take 14 years off anybody's life, I guess that's a lot. But to me, they looked even younger than 14 years younger. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. And until next time, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and peace.